Once again, my name is Egbonrelu, Pioneer Sons Rising School of the Supernatural. We will be continuing from the last session we had on Kingdom Breakthrough for Finance. We talked about the glory of God materializing in resources, okay? And then our focus was how our spirituality is deployed for the manifestation of financial abundance. Okay, now I like us to dwell here a little bit because this is one area I believe that understanding is needed. Now, there's this general notion that when you give in church, it's the way that will manifest wealth. Now, I'm going to talk about that, but I want us to first of all realize that God fabricated principles and laws into the universe. And the capacity to harness these laws is connected to spirituality. Okay? This being spiritual keeps us in touch with the governing principles that has been made by God. So when you see people who are not citizens of the kingdom of God, who has not come to know the Lord, using and engaging these principles and laws for the manifestation of wealth, it is not because now let me put it this way, it is because these laws has no respecter for anyone. Okay, because the Lord causes it to rain both on righteous and on what? On the unrighteous. Now, but this is what happens when the rain falls on the righteous. When the rain falls on the righteous, the fruit of that rain is well deployed. Okay, there is, instead of things going in a perverted order, when the righteous takes the food that comes through the rain, it is used for a perfected order, not a perverted order. Okay, so it is we must understand that the governing principle is the same, but the depth of our spirituality also helps us in the way we engage these principles and the manifestations thereof. Okay, but we need to understand something about giving. Giving is far much more spiritual, and that is why men and women who engage in the process of creating financial wealth understand the practice of philanthropy or giving and all of that. Okay, they understand that there's a connection between the heart and one's capacity to create finance. Okay, it is well understood that the frequency of the heart also can cause certain manifestation to occur. So we will not be able to go into the details. Maybe when you subscribe to our School of the Supernatural, we can go into the mechanics behind giving, the spiritual mechanics behind giving. You don't cause you don't cause material wealth or financial abundance to be manifested because you just give. We must understand the dynamics, the mechanism behind it, the dynamics that facilitate the manifestation of abundance. Okay, I wish I have time to go into this, because see, we need to be very candid with ourselves to know these processes. Okay, this is not the time. This will not be the time for me to go into that details, because we don't have all the time. Because I want us to pay attention to this, that as spiritual men and as spiritual beings, we must understand that when we give, we are actually tapping into our hearts. Okay, and this is the process of creation. Part of the process of creation is the capacity to engage the heart. Okay? Because what has not been made in the heart, what has not been engaged in the heart, cannot concretize into material reality. Okay? And that is why, if you study the book of Genesis, you find out when God spoke about, God talked about the earth not having certain things in place, but in Genesis chapter 1, those things were already in place, because man was to be the vessel for manifestation. And in order to become vessels for manifestation, the heart is the channel for that manifestation. So when we give, it has to do more with what goes on and how we release frequencies in our hearts for manifestation. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell on that. Okay. Now, let me go further. That we must, as believer, begin to break the limits in our mind. Remember, breakthrough is for the purpose of breaking limits and establishing new possibilities. And part of the possibilities that will be emerging in this season is that believers will begin to engage in entrepreneurship and business building and creation. Okay? Now, this will not just be, now I know that we are one way or the other engaged in the processes of bringing for finance through business and all of that. No, I'm not talking about just that. I'm not talking about an ordinary involvement in businesses or in entrepreneurship. I'm talking about, harnessing your spirituality in this arena. You see, that is a major missing link. That is what it means to be a priest. Okay? Bringing priesthood into your business is what will make the difference in this season. And when I talk about priesthood is not going to church. Priesthood is the capacity to actively tap into the depth of your spirituality. Within the interactive life that you share with God, you are able to tap into that for what we are talking about. Okay, now, so you remember how Jacob, was able to compete in such a way, not that he was seeking to compete, but he thrived in that world because he was able to deploy his spiritual capacities from his interactions with God. Okay, now in Genesis chapter 30 verse 27, now there's something that Laban said about Jacob that we need to pay attention to, because Laban said, I know by experience, or I have learned by experience, that God is with you. Now, if you read that at the surface and read that in the English, you would think that he was just saying that, from my experience with you, yes, God is with you. Yes, that is part of it. But when he said that by experience, or I've learned by experience that God is with you, is that what experience in the original means by divination. Okay? In some sort of by occultic processes, okay? By the way he engages spirituality from a very dark dimension, he understood that this was an advanced spiritual man. That when it comes to spirituality, this man is more advanced. Okay? Now, he knew that it was Jacob's spirituality that Jacob was able to do what he did. Okay? We need to pay attention to that. Now, let me pause a little bit and talk about what's going on here. You need to understand that in that business environment you are in, there are people who are tapping into certain dark frequencies, and you think business is just done in that place where you have your setup and all of that. It's not about that setup. That's 20% of the business. Yes, all of that. 80% delves into the unseen realm, into the invisible dimension. In our school, we talk about doing business in the fourth dimension. Okay, maybe when you get to that class, you can talk about this more. But Jacob understood. Laban understood that this man was tapping into a spiritual frequency that was higher than what he knows. And he knew he could identify, his source. Now, let's talk about what Jacob did. What did he do? How he won how he won in that environment, like I said, was by very peculiar and unique innovation. Okay? And this peculiar innovation is not brought forth based on education alone. It was based on revelation. Okay? Now, we need to understand our revelatory capacities go beyond just knowing scriptures and all of that, to knowing that our revelatory capacities can actually break limits in the world we are and give us a capacity to be solution. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about seeking relevance. I'm talking about what you carry can actually become relevant. Okay? Now, we'll be talking about this in the series, but we're just giving you an idea of what it means to find yourself in the midst of kingdom breakthrough. You are going to see yourself breaking through and taking leaps, okay, in spheres like business and finance. Okay, we're going to now, what is this breakthrough? You are going to actively deploy your capacities spiritually. Okay, it's not just pray and pray. No, we think just by praying. We must know how to cultivate the heart. We must know how to tap into the faculties of our spirit, for bringing forth things. Now, these are the things that we will be seeing. Believers are going to be so engaged, and this engagement will cause them to be spiritually active. Okay? Now, I'm just using this business, finance as one area where we'll be seeing breakthroughs. Now, let me say this. This is how the glory of the latter house. Okay? Who is the house there? The house is not the building. The house is the people, or are the people. The glory that will be on God's people for finance in this season will be greater than that of the former. It will no longer be said that identifying the ecclesia and the kingdom with lack. It will no longer be like, when you talk about God's people, you no longer be identified with lack. It will be identified with the capacity for productivity. The capacity to be productive and proffer solutions. That is going to come. I believe also that we are going to be people in the consultancy arena will deploy their prophetic dimensions much more than their capacity to just learn from what. Yes, we must first of all, of course, learning and from like Daniel. He attended the school, the Babylonian school. He learned from their education, but he went far beyond that. He had a window in his room. Okay, with window to another dimension. That window talks about, access to a higher dimension. Because the way that he prayed was he engaged the temple in Jerusalem and he opened the window in the east. All of that was deliberate because he was tapping into a higher dimension. And that much more is what we will be seeing in this season. I wish I had time to talk about technology, talk about how the ecclesia will impact civilization, how by this breakthrough we are going to be causing disruptions to the way things have been set to in the direction or in the order of corruption. In view of these things, we're looking forward, and I want you to look forward to that. We'll be organizing a special event. Because as God's people, we must come to kingdom mastery and understand the spiritual mechanics for these things. And like I said before, this breakthrough is meant for you. And I expect that in this season, as you upgrade into active, heightened spirituality, you'll begin to tap into the prophetic things that the Lord is working in this season, as this breakthrough is manifested in your life and every area of your life. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you in those sessions. Please, I want you to pay attention to this space, because the information are going to be communicated through this platform. God bless you.